Good evening, you're now with me, Razi Ahmad, for TVS Nightline. Here are the headlines for tonight. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim and Sarawak Premier Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Joritun Openg signed a joint declaration to resolve the PETRONAS-PETROS issue. Meanwhile, the August House passes the 2025 Infrastructure Development Trust Fund Dissolution Bill, repealing the ordinance that established the fund. And in world news, U.S. President Donald Trump announces his Golden Dome missile shield system, prompting China to accuse the U.S. of fueling an arms race. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim and Sarawak Premier Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Joritun Openg today signed a joint declaration in efforts to strengthen the nation's oil and gas industry. According to Anwar, the current landscape calls for the federal government to recognize Sarawak's maturity, capability and growth in the oil and gas sector, particularly through its state-owned entity, Petroleum Sarawak Berhad Petros.
Kerana kita dapat meterai satu persefahaman yang baik ke arah memajukan Malaysia dan Sarawak melalui dua syarikat besar, Petronas dengan Petros. Perkara ini sebenarnya dari segi prinsip adalah lama disepakati. Seperti mana pernah saya runding dengan Premier Abang Jo tentang parameters yang jelas, menerima kenyataan PDA 74 dan juga DGO untuk Sarawak. Maknanya keadaan terkini menuntut kita menerima kenyataan bahawa Sarawak berkembang, lebih matang dan lebih punya keupayaan, termasuk mendirikan syarikat minyak negeri yang punya potensi besar.
He said this at the joint declaration signing ceremony and press conference with the Sarawak Premier at the Prime Minister's office earlier today. Also present were Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Fadilah Yusof, Works Minister Datuk Sri Alexander Nantalinggi, Chief Secretary to the Government Tan Sri Shamsul Azri Abu Bakar, Sarawak Minister for Utility and Telecommunication Datuk Sri Julaihi Narawi, and Deputy Minister of Utility Sarawak Energy Berhad and Petros Datuk Ibrahim Baki. Commenting further, Anwar said the declaration reflects a mutual recognition and respect between the federal and Sarawak governments for the Petroleum Development Act 1974 PDA and the Distribution of Gas Ordinance 2016 DGO 2016. Anwar also assured that Petronas's role will not be undermined, stressing that both Petronas and Petros will be duly recognized in carrying out their operations in Sarawak.
Dan kedua-duanya bekerja berganding bahu mengangkat martabat negara melalui industri minyak dan gas dan hiliran, huluan dan beberapa kegiatan alternatif energi yang dibicarakan, dan tentunya seperti mana yang tercatat dalam kenyataan kita, hasrat kita bersama selain dia menjayakan Petronas dan menjadikan Sarawak itu sebagai hub permulaannya bagi ASEAN. Jadi bagi saya itu pendekatan yang sangat realistik yang akan memberikan kemenangan kepada negara dan keberhasilan dan mengangkat kedudukan ekonomi Sarawak.
The statement issued by the Prime Minister's office said the declaration serves to pave the way for continued negotiations between Petronas and Petros, while also acknowledging the authority of both federal and state laws, along with existing agreements. The statement also stressed that all laws governing gas distribution in Sarawak must be upheld by all parties involved, including Petronas and Petros. The understanding ensured Petronas's role would remain intact as enshrined in the 1974 Petroleum Development Act. At the same time, the Sarawak government has appointed Petros as the gas aggregator for Sarawak effective March 1, 2025. The appointment must be respected by all parties engaged in the marketing, distribution, and supply of gas to consumers in the state. Meanwhile, any agreements and arrangements between Petronas and foreign parties for the purpose of LNG or liquefied natural gas sales shall remain unaffected. All discussions and collaborations will be guided by reasonable commercial and technical viability. For future projects involving international partners, Petronas and Petros will engage in close cooperation founded on transparent commercial principles, prioritizing national interest. Meanwhile, the Sarawak government expressed its appreciation to the federal government and Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim for resolving issues related to the oil and gas industry involving Petronas and Petros. Sarawak Premier Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Joritun Openg said the agreement reached between the federal and Sarawak governments serves the national interest, especially in promoting strategic collaboration between the two major players in Malaysia's petroleum industry.
Dan hari ini ada joint declaration yang akan membawa persamaan dan pendekatan bersama di antara kerajaan Sarawak, khasnya Petronas dan Petros, untuk mengusahakan bersama kegiatan-kegiatan minyak dan gas untuk kepentingan negara dan juga mengikut lunas-lunas peruntukan yang ada di antara Undang-Undang Sarawak dan juga Undang-Undang Persekutuan.
Abang Johari also reaffirmed the state government's commitment to upholding the laws that govern both Sarawak and the nation. He stressed that this commitment is made in the best interest of Malaysia and Sarawak. In other news, the Sarawak State Legislative Assembly today passed the 2025 Infrastructure Development Trust Fund Dissolution Bill, thus repealing the ordinance that established the fund in 1985. With the bill's passing, the remaining funds amounting to over 52 million ringgit currently held in the Development Bank of Sarawak DBOS will be fully transferred into the State Consolidated Fund. When tabling the bill, Sarawak Deputy Premier Dr. Amar Douglas Uga Embas assured that the fund's dissolution will not affect the state's planned infrastructure development.
I can assure all the ada beberapa yang berhormat tadi, they express worry that the dissolution of this trust fund will affect the development of infrastructure in Sarawak. I can assure you it will not, because this fund was set for a specific purpose, and that purpose is no longer relevant and has nothing to do with our infrastructure plan in the future in Sarawak.
He said this during his winding-up speech after 8 members of the August House took part in the debate. The second Minister for Finance and New Economy reaffirmed that major infrastructure projects such as roadworks, people-centric projects, and initiatives under the Public Works Department valued at over 30 billion ringgit will continue as scheduled. The Infrastructure Development Trust Fund was originally established in the 1980s to support developers in financing basic infrastructure needs like access roads, water supply, and electricity for housing, commercial, and industrial development. However, Uga noted that the economic landscape has since evolved, with developers now capable of securing their own funding, while the state's fiscal strength has significantly improved. As a result, he announced that the state cabinet has agreed to dissolve the fund. The bill consists of 7 clauses, including the dissolution of the fund, the transfer of its remaining balance to the State Consolidated Fund, the repeal of the 1985 ordinance, and provisions to address administrative expenditures and transitional measures. ICATS University College is making strides in the aerospace sector by signing 3 strategic memorandums of understanding with major industry partners during the Langkawi International Maritime and Aerospace Exhibition, or LIMA 2025. According to ICATS Vice Chancellor Professor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Muhammad Kadim Suaidi, this effort aligns with the Sarawak government's strong commitment to developing the state's aerospace industry and highlights the critical role of close collaboration with industry stakeholders to ensure academic programs are relevant and responsive to both present and future demands.
Kita amat berbangga sekali kerana kita dapat bekerjasama dengan pihak industri, khususnya dalam usaha ICATS University College membangunkan program-program akademik serta juga program-program latihan dan yang agak penting juga adalah program-program yang berkaitan dengan penyelidikan.
He said this when interviewed by TVS after the MOU signing ceremony at the Mahsuri International Exhibition Center MIEC earlier today. ICATS formalized a partnership with Deviation Group Sendirian Berhad, a seasoned provider of programs focused on aircraft maintenance, repair, and overhaul. 2 other MOUs were signed on Tuesday with Westar Aviation Services and the National Aerospace Industry Corporation Malaysia, or NICO Malaysia, covering training, curriculum, development, and academic research. He emphasized that ICATS cannot operate independently in this strategic field and must rely on direct support and expertise from industry players. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced new details and initial funding for his Golden Dome missile shield system. Trump on Tuesday announced $25 billion earmarked for the project, which he said could eventually cost a total of around $175 billion and would be operational in about 3 years.
Design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space.
Beijing hit back, denouncing Golden Dome as a threat to international security and accusing the U.S. of fueling an arms race.
美国奉行本国优先，执迷于谋求自身绝对安全，违反各国安全不受减损的原则，损害全球的战略平衡与稳定。中方对此严重关切。我们敦促美方尽早放弃发展和部署全球反导系统，以实际行动增进大国战略互信，维护全球战略稳定。
The plan's Golden Dome name stems from Israel's Iron Dome air defense system that has intercepted thousands of short-range rockets and other projectiles since it went into operation in 2011. Pope Leo XIV today called for sufficient humanitarian aid to be allowed into war-ravaged Gaza, where humanitarian agencies say a total blockade has sparked critical food and medicine shortages. Leo, who was elected on May 8th to be the Catholic Church's first U.S. Pope, has made peace a theme of his papacy so far, calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war.
È sempre più preoccupante e dolorosa la situazione nella striscia di Gaza. Rinnovo il mio appello accorato a consentire l'ingresso di dignitosi aiuti umanitari e a porre fine alle ostilità, il cui prezzo straziante è pagato dai bambini, dagli anziani, dalle persone malate.
Israel has come under massive international pressure to abandon its intensified military campaign in Gaza and allow urgent humanitarian aid into the besieged strip. The UN announced on Monday that it had been cleared to send in aid for the first time since Israel imposed a total blockade on March 2nd, sparking severe shortages of food and medicine. But aid groups said the amount allowed in is not enough to meet the needs. And those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Razi Ahmad. Thank you for watching and have a good night.